Hello everyone, welcome to AI Gigi. We often hear people talking about data centers, but do you know how they operate inside? Today, we will have a Microsoft data center tour to show you how it operates. Remember to wear your sneakers because we will be walking a long distance. Have you ever thought that all the data from our daily internet activities like streaming shows, gaming, and even AI responses are actually supported by these massive data centers? Cloud data centers are so important and popular because they offer a high level of flexibility. For example, we no longer need to purchase or store large servers, which take up space and are inconvenient. By using the cloud, we can access data 24/7, and the charges are based on usage. If a server breaks down or becomes outdated, we don't have to pay to replace or buy it ourselves. Data centers are even more important. Do you know how much it costs to build a data center? Why are most of them single-story instead of high-rise buildings? So today, we are going to soar into the cloud to take a look at data centers. How expensive are data centers? Well, I haven't built a data center, but I have built residential properties in New York. So, I looked up some information on building data centers and made a comparison with residential properties. In the United States, the average construction cost, specifically for data centers, ranges from $600 to $1,100 per square foot. Of course, this varies by state. If you want to build a 100,000 square foot data center, which is about the average size for data centers in the U.S. So, just the construction costs, the hard costs, would be approximately $60 million to $1.1 billion, including soft costs, like financing, taxes, approvals, marketing, purchasing cloud hardware, etc. The total cost can reach up to $1.75 billion, up to $4 billion. When talking about these numbers, we need to make a comparison to visualize it. So, what can you build with 100,000 square feet in terms of residential space? I remember participating in a project in New York, which happened to be exactly 100,000 square feet. We built 148 units, including studios and one-bedroom units. The construction cost was approximately $400 per square foot, and including all the soft costs, the total cost was around $60 million. So, this means that in a data center, the cost is 3 times more expensive than building a regular residential property. Of course, these figures are for reference only, and the prices can vary depending on different markets. You can check the sources of the data and make your own assessment. But this means that if we build a data center, it's like building a super luxury mansion in terms of cost. It's so expensive because it requires a strong power supply, a cooling system, ultra-high-speed internet, and also very strong security to protect our data. Has anyone noticed that most data centers are single-story buildings rather than skyscrapers? The reason is quite simple. Just like when we renovate or in our homes. If you place some very heavy equipment, if you put it too high, the load-bearing issue becomes very serious. In a data center, a single server can weigh around 400 to 1,000 pounds. If you have several server rooms combined, it could weigh several thousand tons. This means that if you build multiple stories, the foundation needs to be reinforced, which would increase the cost even more. Additionally, a single-story design facilitates cooling, allowing the data center to operate more efficiently. However, in places where land prices are high, like Hong Kong, New York, or London, multi-story data centers might be used. For example, the Hong Kong One building in Tsuen Wan is as tall as 27 stories, right, where in the United States has the most data centers. The number one spot is Northern Virginia. It has over 300 data centers. This is one of the most densely populated areas for data centers in the world. So, who's in second place? It's Texas and California, both with around 280 data centers each. Texas, because the electricity is cheap and there's plenty of land. And California, well, it has Silicon Valley, with so many tech companies there. Although the land prices are higher, it doesn't matter because the people and the tech hub are there. So, even though the land prices in New York are high, we have many important companies. Therefore, quite a few data centers choose to be located in nearby New Jersey. Together, New York and New Jersey have over 100 data centers. Overall, the location selection for data centers doesn't just consider the cost, because they can't be too far from their service targets, as that would be inconvenient and inefficient. So, you also won't see many data centers in Manhattan, because that would mean competing for electricity with residents. In many other states, they have cheap electricity and government incentives to develop data centers. Which has a higher return investing in data centers or residential properties? Well, if we look at the return rate for data centers, it can go up to 10 to 18%. Compared to the return rate for residential properties, which is usually only 5 to 7%. Why is it like this? Because the income from data centers is not just from rent. They also collect fees for electricity, broadband, and cloud services. And they usually have long-term contracts. For example, Amazon's AWS and Google Cloud are very stable major tenants. In contrast, residential investments are affected by tenant turnover, and they usually sign contracts for 6 months to a year, which also carries a high risk of vacancies. After talking for so long, our tour bus has already arrived at the Meishuan data center. Before we go in, let's take a look at the entire site environment. First, so this is the building of the data center. Over here is the renewable energy facility, and this area is for environmental protection and recycling. We'll talk more about it in detail later. And here are some of the surrounding fences and security defenses. All right, let's not talk too much. Let's go inside and take a look at the lobby first. Okay, let's take a look around the environment first. Okay, so this here is the entrance to the data center. It's not like a regular company where you can just walk in casually. Usually, there's an identification system, like fingerprint scanning, facial recognition, or even iris recognition. That's right, the measures here are like those of a super bank vault. Unauthorized individuals cannot enter freely. And of course, there are CCTV cameras, meaning 24-hour surveillance. Outside, you can also see there are very high fences and security patrols. It's really no different from a high-level gold vault. All right, let's go inside. Take the lift to enter. Okay, so this is the control room. Let's see the on-site environment. All right, here is our control room, which can be considered the command headquarters of the data center. Here, we have a 24-hour professional team. A professional team. They conduct monitoring, not only on site, but also have some people from other remote teams who are simultaneously monitoring. So every move of the data center is monitored by these teams to ensure that operations are normal. If any issues arise, then the on-site personnel can intervene at any time. Alternatively, the remote teams can also intervene at any time. You will see that on the big screen, there are many real-time data being monitored, actually just like the control tower airport. So now let's go. Take a look at this machinery area first. All right. So now we are in the machinery area, in the machine room. Here, it is responsible for the cooling system and power management. With so many servers operating, they will of course generate heat, so the machinery area is very important. Here, the main facilities are the cooling system and power equipment to ensure that the servers can operate at the optimal temperature. So you will see here, there are many large cooling fans, chilled water circulation, and air filters. All of these are responsible for maintaining the air quality and temperature stability. Without these systems, the entire data center would become very hot. On this side, we have the power supply, which ensures that we won't experience any power outages, because data centers need to operate 24 hours a day. Even a 1-second power outage is unacceptable. Typically, many data centers have dual power sources. Additionally, there might be backup batteries to ensure a backup power supply, meaning to ensure power can be maintained, or even diesel generators can be used so that in the event of a power outage, the generator can start immediately. So, regarding the cooling system, how is cooling usually done? Usually there are several methods, such as using air conditioning, having a powerful fan to blow away the heat. Another method is using water to cool and absorb heat. Another one is separating hot and cold aisles to prevent heat circulation from affecting the cooling efficiency. All right, let's go in. Let's go into the server room and take a look. This is the most important core area of the data center. Okay, let's first look at the surroundings. We can probably, yes, we can get a little closer. All right, here we are. You can see these rows of server racks. And inside each rack, there are many super servers for cloud computing, and AI applications. You can imagine this as a digital library with thousands and thousands of them, tens of thousands of pieces of data. These are supporting global operations, and each server is connected to a high-speed fiber optic network to ensure that data transmission is very fast. Yes. All right, let's go. The next place, well, is the recycling center. It's for environmental protection and repairs. All right, let's first take a look at the environment on site. All right, so what does the recycling center do here? Well, Microsoft places a lot of importance on environmental protection. So the Recycling and Repair Center, of course, focuses on resource recycling and reuse because, actually, a lot of different hardware, their lifespan is roughly 3 to 7 years before they need to be replaced. Like some old servers. Electronic components and other hardware, they won't just be thrown away like that. They might be taken apart for recycling or perhaps upgraded. So, Microsoft has its own plan to achieve a zero waste goal by 2030, meaning not even a single screw should be wasted. All right, so what's next? Let's take a look at the next network area. Let's review the on-site environment. All right. So what does the network area do? Here, you could say, is the control tower of the data center. It's mainly responsible for handling data traffic flow, ensuring that information for users worldwide is transmitted quickly and securely. It's actually quite like a highway. Inside, there are many advanced network switches and routers. These are devices we might be familiar with, and they handle tens of thousands of connections per second. You can imagine this place as a system, similar to a highway, where the data is like cars, and through these high-speed networks, it is transmitted to its various destinations. And then, right. Next, we are going to the innovation zone. Let's take a look here. First, all right. So this innovation zone, actually, Microsoft has invested a lot in research here, aiming to achieve cutting-edge technology. This includes things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on. We ourselves often go to Microsoft in New York to attend various gatherings. They have really invested a lot of resources in innovation. So, if anyone is interested, you can visit this website to take a closer look at each video. Honestly, I tried to contact some data centers to see if we could arrange a tour and bring some students along, but it's really not easy because their security considerations are very important. I hope that this Microsoft initiative, the online 3D tour they have, is actually quite well done. So if you're interested, you can take a look at it yourself. Today, our data center tour comes to an end here. If you like this content, remember to leave a comment and share it. Bye-bye.